Boruto is currently in the worst predicament of his life so far. We already know everything that happened with Omnipotence, but it didn't result in his death. But with everything that we are being told chapter after chapter, and with Akashin Koji who can see the future telling us that this is the end, how exactly can Boruto survive? And for it to make sense while we still wiggle around the fact that Kashin Koji can see the future, so he should actually know whether Boruto can make it or not, there are only two ways that it could actually make sense. And the first one that we're going to start off this video by discussing is one that lies with Momoshiki and how it would still work with the fact that Kashin Koji has seen the future and has seen that Boruto will die. So first discussing the fight itself, a lot of people do have this opinion due to the fact that Boruto is constantly glazed in the story, so I'm not seeing it as people intentionally trying to misinterpret what happened in this chapter and say that Boruto is this god who can defeat anybody. While I'm not saying that, we have to be 100% objective and remove the bias that we currently have for Boruto. Boruto is currently being defeated by Jura. Jura throughout this fight can be said to be holding back. We can clearly see that Jura is having the same stance that he had with Himawari, not taking it too far. Jura throughout this chapter was asking Boruto questions about love and trying to figure out exactly what was Boruto's stance. With Jura, we have constantly seen this conflict of interest. His instincts obviously now telling him to kill Boruto, not even devour him due to the amount of information that Boruto has access to. Not even Boruto, but the person who he is connected to, which is Kashin Koji. So he has that first instinct telling him this, but he has his curiosity due to him now becoming conscious. He has this curiosity of love, which he is trying to figure out that humans have, and he believes that it could end up affecting the Senju, as he has been able to observe with Konohamaru. So we have this conflict of interest of both his instincts and his curiosity, and this is something that has plagued Jura's character over and over again. Could have dealt with Boruto then, but he let Boruto live because his current curiosity was overflowing his instincts to devour. So this is something that has been placed in Boruto's character for us to pay attention to. So whenever we're seeing him fight somebody who he deems to be strong, due to the fact that he is feeling such intense curiosity, which has literally been said in this chapter, we see him holding back so he could figure out more about his opponent. For this fight for Boruto, it was about love, and for that fight versus Himawari, the fight between Jura and Himawari, it was to figure out just exactly what was those powers that Himawari had, and exactly why, while looking for Naruto, he was drawn to Himawari and not actually Naruto himself. Those were the curiosities that he has, and we're seeing something similar here. So although it may not look like Boruto is taking this crazy L, Boruto is still holding up a decent fight, but Jura is clearly not going all out. So with this stance right here, we can now move on to why Momoshiki is one of Boruto's only options. So the way I could see this going down is that in this next chapter, obviously, we have seen that the Uzuhiko doesn't end up working. We're going to see Boruto continue to fight versus Jura, and I see this happening a bit like what we had versus Pain and Naruto, where Boruto will be subdued, obviously not devoured, but he will be subdued by Jura, which is most likely going to take place in that wood style that we have seen him do on Himawari, and we have seen him attempt on Boruto previously. And while doing so, obviously throughout this entire thing, Boruto is going to be putting up a fight, even though he knows that he can't escape. The reason why he can't escape is due to the fact that we still have Sarada, we still have Mitsuki, we still have all those other people like Konohamaru, who one have to take those Storm Souls back. But we already see with Mitsuki and Ayara that Ayara is going to go and revive Shinki. Thus Boruto has to stay until this whole process is done to make sure that Jura doesn't go and target the people who he has figured out that Boruto has love for, and try to use that to his advantage. Because this has already been laid out, Boruto has to continue and fight Jura. So while Boruto is eventually subdued by Jura, we will have this discussion of love continue to happen, with Boruto giving his own interpretations. But then will come the time to kill Boruto, and this is where Boruto will be faced in a similar situation to the one where he had versus Code, where the opponent was so strong where Boruto had to use his karma. but at that moment he realized that he felt like dying, so he immediately cancelled it out and eventually had to run. Now that running is not an option, if I'm going to die, might as well use the karma and see what happens if I can take him out while he ends up trying to take me out. And eventually, both of us die at the same time. Their plans clearly have never involved Momoshiki and Boruto using the karma, due to the fact that Boruto has probably already told Kashinkoji that he feels like he is dying whenever he used the karma. But in addition to that, Kashinkoji most likely told Boruto not to use the karma, due to the fact of everything he could have seen happen if Momoshiki is to take over Boruto's consciousness whenever he ends up using the karma. One thing that is very important to note that we did end up hearing from Ikimoto is that Momoshiki does in fact possess the ability to see the future, and he did so while being in Boruto's mind. So I believe that it is very well possible that Momoshiki has seen this happening, and unlike last time, he has decided not to talk or not to even think about anything, so that the merger that we saw take place in chapter 75, where their thoughts would echo, Momoshiki didn't want the same thing to happen, leading to Boruto seeing the vision of the future and altering it from happening in the way that it was supposed to happen. So now that we have this thing that Kashinkoji has also seen the future with the Prescience, and Momoshiki with his abilities that Ikimoto has confirmed, he has also seen the future. This time, he is remaining silent to let it happen exactly how it was supposed to, which means that Boruto will be forced to use the karma. And the way that I could see this taking place is where Boruto has a specific amount of time where he is able to use the karma without actually ending up dying yet, without actually ending up leaving the reins to Momoshiki, where he can use the karma like he did before. And it's with this gamble of his life, since I'm already gonna die, he's going to gamble the fact that he's able to take down Jura with the karma before Momoshiki eventually ends up taking control. Because we have already seen with Boruto, he has said this multiple times, dying to Boruto isn't a problem. He already died before, but to him now, if it would mean that his death would lead to the worst future being averted, then he would die. He said to people who told him that he should just die right now that he can't do so right now, not until he deals with this current dilemma. The tensions are very high right now, and I'm feeling it chapter after chapter. But now we're reaching the point where Boruto is about to gamble that fact right here of fighting Momoshiki. So how exactly would that match with what Kashinkoji said? The fact that Boruto doesn't even have a 1 in a million chance of defeating Jura. And the fact lies right here. The fact that Boruto will still die. With this theory, it still matches the idea that Boruto will die fighting Jura. But in this case, we have a Momoshiki that ends up taking over for a period of time, with Boruto who is technically dead. He won't be necessarily dead to Jura's attack, but due to the fact that Jura is so strong and Boruto can't flee, Boruto will be forced to fight, going all out using the karma, leading to his death, meaning that Jura has indirectly killed Boruto. And speculating on the fact of what could happen when Momoshiki is taking over Boruto's body and fights versus Jura, I really don't know what will end up taking place, because what we would have here is maybe Jura could be stronger, or maybe it's going to be where it's a draw and Jura ends up retreating after finding out information that, oh, Momoshiki, a god, is in Boruto's body. Okay, let me retreat. We have seen this time after time where Jura learns new information like he did with Boruto, having knowledge about the Soul Thorn, then he goes back in his base and formulates a new strategy. Jura has never been shown to be a reckless individual, so that could be one way where we would then see Momoshiki in Boruto's body, and it would still mean that Boruto is dead, but Boruto as a body is alive with Momoshiki taking over. This is one thing that I can definitely see taking place, and would still match with the fact that Kashinkoji has seen that Boruto would die. This is one way that I could see it happening. Now the next way that Boruto could be saved, or at least have a greater fighting chance in defeating Jura or leading to him retreating, is with Kawaki. And this theory still could have a little bit of plot holes in the way that it is integrated, but depending in the way it is integrating, it would make sense, and Kawaki fans would clearly be happy with the events that would end up taking place. And that would be for Kawaki to end up making an appearance and fight versus the likes of Jura. One thing that we have seen and learned from Boruto is that he knew the fact that Amado intentionally nerfed Kawaki by amping his defense, taking away from his attack potential. By learning this information from Kashin Koji, Boruto did end up telling Kawaki. Now with here, we have a few things that could be explored. The fact that we know that Kashin Koji doesn't really like the fact that Boruto wants to work with Kawaki, and we have seen him give Boruto a weird glance when it came to him wanting to not kill Kawaki but work with Kawaki. We have seen this being shown in the past, so it is likely that it is not in Kashin Koji's plans for Boruto and Kawaki to work together. And here comes Boruto as the singularity of fate, as his decisions will eventually end up changing the future alongside all the other singularities of fate. And thus, by Boruto telling Kawaki about this, and we have a Kawaki who now is going to obtain those limiters, they are changing the future. Whether Kashin Koji is aware of this or not, they have already started to change the future. And thus, with Kawaki potentially making an appearance next chapter where Boruto is then in a bind, we would have Boruto and Kawaki versus Jura. Now depending on what happens, this could ultimately be a good setup for Jura, as he has the chakra fruit fodder, which is going to be Kawaki and the person he wants to kill there at the same time, and he could call other Senjus to come and help. There are various ways it could end up going, and potentially too, it could still end up leading to this time not just Boruto dying, but Kawaki, depending on how strong Kawaki is, and hopefully he is quite strong. Maybe he ends up being stronger than Boruto. There are various things we could end up seeing, but with that happening, it does increase the likelihood of Boruto being able to survive. But a Boruto who has multiple options available to him, if he deems that him and Kawaki are strong enough to be able to take down Jura, then they simply end up working together and take him down. Now if that is not possible, then Boruto can teleport away using the flying Raijin, and then end up getting all those various people to safety, to each and their respective villages, where we already know that if you are in the village, Jura is less likely to go and attack you unless you are Boruto. That was what was stated by Kashin Koji, especially when it came to Himawari. So by bringing Kawaki, Kawaki could end up stalling this fight with Boruto, for Boruto to end up getting everybody to safety, and then Boruto makes it back and gets Kawaki to safety too and returns to his location. This is the only way that I would really see them being able to escaping, and to be 100% honest, for some odd reason I just don't see it happening, due to the simple fact that in this moment everything has been building up to Boruto confronting Jura, and for it to happen in a way that would ultimately end up making this fight be postponed, and we don't really see the climax of this fight take place where Boruto is basically running and praying that something happens, simply I don't see it working out. If this fight is to be stalled, I do believe that it has to go the Momoshiki way, and if Kawaki and Boruto are to fight Jura, then it has to be the moment where Jura ends up being defeated. So either Kawaki is strong enough to end up defeating Jura, or Momoshiki is the only viable way. And even though I've already explained how Kawaki could end up helping Boruto out, I still believe that it won't happen due to some of the plot concerns that I have and how it wouldn't make sense. There are two ways we can interpret Kashin Koji's ability. Kashin Koji has the ability to see the different paths that the future could end up going in, and he has seen that there is less than a 1 in a million chance that Boruto is not killed by Jura, especially with the actions that Boruto has taken. For this theory to work, it would mean that Kashin Koji could only see those different paths that the future could take once, and after the actions that Boruto has taken, Kashin Koji can no longer see how the future will end up changing. Thus, Kawaki actually pulling up would make a difference because Kashin Koji can necessarily see where that future lies. This is one interpretation that we could have. But another interpretation is that Kashin Koji can basically spam that ability and always check where the future lies. And to be 100% honest, obviously I want the Kawaki theory to work out so that there's a reason why Boruto ends up living and we still get to see Boruto as a character and an entity remain. But if we go off the interpretation that the story is really trying to go off with, Kashin Koji can basically spam that ability. And in spamming that ability, he can constantly see how each and every one of his actions are affecting the future. And the reason I say that this is the interpretation that the story is going with is due to the fact that Kashin Koji was able to see the various outcomes in the fight between Ishiki and Naruto when he used Baryon mode, and he was also later then able to see the various outcomes with Boruto versus Kawaki and everything that happened with omnipotence. Thus, I do believe that this is an ability that Kashin Koji can continuously spam, and due to that being the case, I think that it is kinda unlikely that we go with the second theory of Kawaki making an appearance, which ends up resulting in Boruto still living. Kawaki can still appear, I'm not denying that, but Boruto still making it out is something that wouldn't make sense with Kawaki's appearance, due to the fact that it would still go against what Kashin Koji saw in the future, and it would end up leading to a plot hole. So that theory is kind of hard for me to go all in with, but I do end up going all in with the theory of Momoshiki. And if you want to understand a little bit more about how Momoshiki could end up making an appearance that saves Boruto, you have to watch this video right here.